He's full of himself. Please welcome Mr. David Hansen.
Hello, I'd like to talk about myself for a few minutes. I'm an acting major. In fact, oh jeez. Thank you. I live just a block from the theater here, and one night after a show, I figured, why bother? I'll just wear the makeup home, jump in the shower to wash it off. When you know, I got locked out. So there I am, standing outside my apartment, kabuki face. Couldn't get in, didn't want to go back. Went to a Hoolies, I fit right in. But speaking of showers, thank you. Speaking of showers, I had one the other day. It's kind of hard to believe. And I scraped off so much mud and scum that I found a pair of underwear I'd been missing for 3 months. You might be thinking gross, and you'd be right, but the babes dig me. They do. There was this girl. Beautiful young thing. Ran into me just earlier today here in the front room. She said, "Hey Dave, let's say we get it on between classes." Now, I'm not an idiot. See, I know the time between classes at Athens High is only 5 minutes. She was insulting my manhood. Remember when Wham broke up? Remember that? How they had to use a crowbar to get them apart? But, can I talk about ugly people for a while? Ugly people haven't got a clue what love is. Well, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I was at the Nick last weekend, right? And this ugly girl approaches me, right? And it took all of my energy and concentration to refuse her affections, which is something a more confident, attractive person could have done because they'd be used to it, right? I didn't used to be this stunning, believe me. Oh, they were playing Erotic City. Do you remember that song, Erotic City? I remember that song. I'd completely forgotten how to dance to it, you know? I asked a friend of mine, and he said, "Well, just pretend like you're having sex." God, I've forgotten a lot of things lately. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had a lot of sex. I just don't look like it. I'll tell you one thing. Never sleep with an acting major. No, because afterwards they always critique your performance. Dave, you lacked motivation. Sorry, babe, I thought that was your part of the bargain. Well, c'est la brie, or as they say in France, that's cheese. What was I talking about? Ugly people. I was talking about ugly people. Now, ugly people will swarm at love no matter who gives it or what they look like, because they're desperate, right? See, I see pig number 1 and pig number 2 kissing and holding hands, and I know they only think they're in love. And in fact, they're the only two that'll have each other. I mean, sure, handsome people can be as insensitive and narrow-minded when it comes to choosing mates. I'm proof. But only someone with a clear-cut choice of plenty of babes, or significant others, can be trusted for choosing one for the right reason. And that girl the other night at the Nick, pig number 3. But, let me tell you, you know what the best kind of love is? Love of a mother. See, I didn't used to love my mother so much. In fact, when Dad was around, I barely spoke to her. She didn't interest me. Fun for me was tossing the ball around with Dad, or going to the game with Dad, throwing back suds with Dad, but no more. No, Dad's tossed his last ball, gone to his last game, and thrown his last sud. And that left me and Mom to cope, and that was kind of frightening, getting to know this woman who all my life had made my meals but never watched me eat, made my bed but never watched me sleep, mended my clothes but never watched me dress. All those years under the same roof with a being similar to Dad and me, but with no dick. Of course, I figured it was natural. I just thought Dad was protecting me from some horrible creature, when the truth was it was my father who was keeping me, his only son, from the love of his mother. But I have her love now. I have her love in a way which would be cheapened if I put it into words. But I'll try. We were walking in the park the other day. I was swinging a picnic basket, the contents of which were champagne and French bread and some chocolate spread. She strode on ahead of me and picked a daisy, put it in her hair, turned and gave me a seductive look. "Do you like it?" she asked. "Why, yes, I like it," I said. "I like it very much, Mother." And with that, she'd stride on down the lane. I'd follow with an unseen joy in my heart, spring in my stride and a rock in my pants. Later on, we'd eat the champagne and drink the bread and laugh and laugh. It was kismet. It was a naturalistic rapport. She'd felt my childish needs and I'd felt her. Then later on, and then later on, we might roll down the hills thick with grasses, or run down the lanes holding hands, or maybe she'd take off into the woods and lose me. I'd wander around for a little while, screaming, "Mother!" Lost. Often hours would pass and the sun would go down. A strange, violent freak with a black sack over his face would stalk me and overpower me and tie me to a tree and strip off my clothes and cover me with honey and then leave me for the rest of the night at the mercy of the ants and the bees and the big bears and chipmunks with sharp teeth. Maybe I'd be there for a couple of days, screaming until my throat bled, and then one day, one special day, my mother would return, and she'd untie me, and she'd cry over my wounded anatomy, and she'd take me home and bathe me and wrap me in towels and admit that it'd been her in the black sack who'd left me there to die, and she'd laugh, and I'd laugh, and I'd love her all the more. Well, wouldn't you? Thank you.